Wait for no cars. AC is off. That's a nice introduction to today's video. So as you guys can see, we are out for a drive in the e36 M3. I've been driving this car a lot more lately, and actually we're getting up to some cliffs and I want you guys to hear the exhaust. So, oh, nice waterfall. Oh, you guys saw it? All right, check this out. This sounds so good. Anyways, when I bought this car like 3.5 years ago, it had almost 72,000 miles on it. Now 3.5 years later, I'm almost at 80. And if you see the title of today's video, I don't want to talk you out of buying an old BMW like an e30, an e36, or an e46. In fact, I really love mine. But I do have some negatives. In the last 8,000 miles that I've driven this car, in the 3.5 years that I've owned it, there's definitely some things that I think you should know if you're looking into buying one. So if you haven't seen the videos about the positives, stop what you're doing, click the card up here, watch that video, and then come back and listen to what I have to say about this. So the reason I think I can loop in e30s and e46s is because these cars are so similar. In these years, they share a lot of parts, they share a lot of the same character, and just a lot of the downfalls as well. So this should envelop all of those old cars. And when I do a Google search, one of the biggest things that falls along searching for these e30s, e46s, and e36s is ones that are for sale. So it's a hot topic, people trying to look to buy these things. And the older they get, it seems like the more common they become, or the more wanted they become. And for a good reason. Gosh, they're so fun. But it's not all fun and games. There are some negatives, so let's get into it. I was doing a lot of thinking, just driving around, about maybe the 5 biggest things or the 5 biggest reasons why you shouldn't buy an e30, an e36, or an e46. And the number one thing that comes to mind, since this is the oldest car that I've ever owned, is just the fact that it's old. And when cars are old, there's a lot more problems that come along with it, even if you have a low mileage car like mine with only 70,000 miles, 79,000 miles, being a 99. Listen, higher miles and older age just means more maintenance. More maintenance with parts wearing out, but not just that, more maintenance with things getting old. Things like bushings wear out, suspension components wear out just with age. Things crack and get old, vacuum lines go bad. As you can see from what I had to do, the subframe and suspension bushings, replacing those is not a very small job. It's gonna take you a long time, but if you have a shop do it, it's also gonna cost you an arm and a leg. Speaking of the e30, e36, and e46 chassis in general, there are some known issues with the chassis that you're gonna have to address, and the older the car gets, the more likely that those big parts are gonna fail, and it's a pain if it happens to you. So preventative maintenance is a big deal, and you definitely wanna find one that doesn't have these issues. So, you know, the higher the mileage the car gets, the more likely that the rear strut towers are gonna crack and I guess get blown out. Even the strut towers in the front can do that. The subframe mounts on the back, if you don't have an M car, this is a bigger problem in e46s and e36s that aren't M cars. Those where the subframe mounts up to the chassis, those suckers can tear right out. And you have to weld in reinforcements, weld in to fix that. It's just kind of a big job. So myself, this being the oldest car that I've ever owned, I thought if I buy a really low mileage car, I'm probably not gonna have that many issues. And I really haven't. The car's been pretty dang reliable for me, but I had to replace the motor mounts, I had to replace all the suspension bushings. Parts just get worn out and cracked, and age does a number on them. So if you're gonna purchase a car like an e30 to an e36, e46, just know that those are things you're gonna have to do. If you don't wanna put that kind of labor and that kind of time into them, then I guess I suggest you don't buy one, unless you can find one that somebody just did that stuff on it for you. Something else important to consider. This is ridiculous. I gotta put a jacket on. It's what, June? What the heck? You're not gonna be able to see it very well because of this lens, but there's snow on the top of that mountain. And there's snow on the top of that mountain. And our local ski resort's got like 5 inches of snow yesterday. Crazy. Anyways, back to the frickin' point. When I was looking at picking up an e36, obviously I compared it with a lot of other cars that are in the same price range. Now, I picked up this sucker for like 12,000 bucks, and I had to pay $1,000 to ship it to me. I was looking anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000. There's a lot you can get for that kind of money. Also, I got a really good deal on this. When you get an e36 with that low of miles, that's an M3 coupe and a manual, they're usually a lot more money. Let's get these halos back on. I love them so much. The reason I mention that is you do have to think about the competition when you're looking for a car to buy. I mean, consider like an e30, at least around where I live, just for an average one, you're gonna pay like $4,000 to $8,000. There's a lot of other things you can get that are a lot newer and a lot more reliable, well, maybe not more reliable, but a lot newer and have some greater tech than what you're gonna get in an e30 or an e36, an e46. Just consider this. I mean, you can get an e90 335i with like triple the horsepower of an e30 for the same price as an e30. And you really have to consider tech as well. Although you can get like dual automatic climate control, sunroof, heated seats, and all that kind of stuff in these kind of BMWs, you can't get things like backup cameras, blind spot monitoring systems, just other new modern technology. You're just not going to find them in these old cars. Do you want to pay $12,000 for an e36 M3? Or do you want to pay $12,000 for a BRZ or even a 370Z that has a lot newer and maybe a little more comfortable interior and just more modern amenities? Maybe you have a family. Maybe you have to think about if you're going to be taking your kids or your wife in your car and driving that if it's your daily driver. New cars with the modern safety tech, something you really have to consider. Most newer cars are going to be more efficient, they're going to be better on gas, and in the case of like an e36 M3 versus a 370Z or something like that, those newer cars are going to have more power too. Something else that I think's a positive that some of you may see as a negative is that these are rear-wheel drive. It's so tail happy. That makes them a lot of fun, but it also means that depending on where you live, it could be a problem if it's your daily driver. A lot of older BMWs like e30s, e36s, e46s, in fact, I don't think there were any, at least in the United States, any all-wheel drive e36 models. There was some e30s and some e46s, and those all-wheel drive models are really hard to find. And all like the more performance-oriented ones are not gonna have all-wheel drive. So rear-wheel drive, there's not much weight in the back. At least with front-wheel drive, you have the engine to kind of put some traction to the ground. Yeah, you can get winter tires, but even with winter tires, it's not going to perform as well as a front-wheel drive car with winter tires or an all-wheel drive car. So if you live in a place where you kind of have nasty weather from time to time, you're just going to have to realize that there's going to be some conditions where you may not be able to take your car out when you want to or drive it the way that you want to. But it does mean that you can have a lot of fun like we did back there, and like the primary reason I use this car. With a huge handful of other auto manufacturers out there that do offer all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive fun cars, it's really something that you need to really cross-shop and understand that where you live, you might have to make a decision on what you're going to buy, kind of based on that, if it is going to be your daily driver. Those burls are awesome. Oh my gosh, this car handles so freaking good. And on to the next topic. Kind of has to do with the car being old and having to maintain it. It's going to have to do with the fact that there's a BMW tax on labor. This labor is expensive. If you're not going to work on your car and fix the little things yourself, it's going to end up costing you quite a bit to maintain the vehicle. And every time there's an issue, if you're taking it to a shop, you're going to have kind of a big bill. The nice thing is when you are buying an old car like this, they're a lot more simple than the new cars of today, so the chances of you being able to figure it out, even if you're kind of a novice when it comes to this kind of a thing, it's not going to be that bad. But if you're the kind of person that doesn't want to touch a car when something's gone wrong, probably not the right one for you. Something on like a Toyota Corolla where a repair might cost $300 or $400, on a BMW is probably going to cost you $6 or $7. Luckily, if you maintain the vehicle and take good care of it, you're really not going to run into repairs that are that large or that expensive, but it's all going to add up because things are going to go wrong with age, they're going to go wrong with time. That's really true with any old or used car, but especially with BMWs, the cost is going to be a little higher than what you may be used to. And speaking of labor, this is something that I'd never run into before and was really surprising to me. The first time that I had kind of a small thing with this car that I didn't want to deal with, I took it to 2 different shops and they told me right away, we don't work on BMW. So there's some of them that aren't even going to touch them. I don't know if it's just because they know that it's a little more expensive, they're a little more finicky, maybe you have to get parts from somewhere else, but it just was weird to me that there were some like general automotive repair shops that wouldn't touch BMWs. Luckily around where I live, there's a lot of specific like BMW performance shops. There's no shortage of them around here, and there's probably one where you live too. So you should be able to find one that still is going to be able to take care of things and know what they're doing. The last thing I want to mention to you guys with this, gosh, beautiful sunset, sprinklers going off, it's just a nice day in Utah. But the last thing I want to mention to you guys has to do with the price. Specifically considering M cars, I mean, they're stupid expensive. Like e30 M3s, e36 M3s aren't that bad, but ones that are like well under 100,000 miles can still be like over 20,000 bucks. Let's not even get into e46 M3s. M cars aside, just looking at normal e30s, e36s, and e46s, they're still pretty expensive for what you get. And unfortunately, with older cars like those, it's kind of hard to get a loan for them, so you're pretty much gonna have to pay cash for the majority of the ones that you might be looking at. So after driving both of them, would you rather have something like a 1999 BMW, or for the same price, like a 2013 BRZ or a 370Z? If you're considering things like an E30, would you rather have something like a 1985 E30, or would you rather have something 20 years newer for the same price? With me personally, obviously I made my choice and I'm sticking with it. There's a reason why there's so many people who are willing to pay that extra price for these cars. You saw some reasons why earlier when I was driving around. They're just so much more fun to drive and they have a ton of character. So after watching my video on why I do recommend buying these cars and why so many people like them, and then watching today's video of why you may not want one, it's really up to you to kind of weigh the pros, weigh the cons, and make a decision for yourself. With that said, guys, there's a lot more BMW content coming up here on the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next one.